Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, back in Milwaukee, back in the studio, as you can probably hear, also known as my apartment. And today we've got some exciting stuff to go through. We finally got the August wholesale sales and export numbers, so we can back into domestic sales as well for China, which allows us to extrapolate a lot more information for the total of Q3. So we're going to jump into some spreadsheets today. For the audio listeners, might be worth flipping over to video for this one. But we'll take a look at how Q3 is shaping up, and also what that might mean a little bit for Q4. And then we just have a few other stories to go through at the end, but otherwise a relatively quiet news day, but obviously some big news there with those numbers coming out. So we'll jump right into it just with the stock first. Kind of an up and down day for Tesla today, kind of spiked with the news this morning from those numbers and then dropped in the red throughout the day, but did recover to finish up 0.1% to $753.87. And I think that compared to the NASDAQ down about 0.5% or so. I don't have it up here on screen, but it did outperform the broader market on the day. So the biggest news of the day, this came out overnight, was the monthly numbers from China, from the CPCA. So we get these every month. It's sort of broken into wholesale sales, which is a combination of domestic China sales and export vehicles, which gets to a total of wholesale, which should closely match to production. We'll go through a little bit of those differences in a second, but obviously what we care about here most of the time is production, because that gives us the best insight on what actually deliveries will end up being, because obviously Tesla quite production constrained at the moment. So we got this report, jump right into it. We can see here that in August, CPCA reports that Tesla has exported 31,379 vehicles from China, and that wholesale sales for Tesla China was 44,264 vehicles, which would be by far a record out of China. So we'll flip over to Excel here and just look at these numbers in context, as we generally do. Unfortunately, we don't have the split between Model 3 and Model Y yet, so we'll kind of have to wait and see how that's coming in. But you can see that backs into about 13,000 or so retail sales. So we had heard leaks of 10,800, 10,400, I think, and then 14,000 something from the Tesla Shanghai analyst. And it looks like, unlike previous months, looks like both of those were a little bit off this time. Obviously not too far off, but a little bit more off than they'd been in the past. So we'll have to remember that for next time. But those did come in kind of in between those two estimates. So nothing super surprising on the retail sales side. Exports, though, you can see 31,000. That's up significantly from July, around probably 20-30% there. From July's 24,000 vehicles exported. So Tesla just continuing to Tesla continuing to pump out vehicles from Shanghai over to Europe. As they noted in the Q2 earnings report, they have now shifted that over to be the export hub, with North America and with Fremont production basically just going to North America, obviously because demand is quite strong here right now. So we don't know production yet, but we can get a good sense of it as I mentioned before. Generally, it's in between 2,000 and 4,000 vehicles of what this wholesale sales number ends up being, but it can vary whether it's more production versus wholesale or less production versus wholesale. This month we happen to be coming off of July, which actually had more production than sales, so that builds inventory. That allows Tesla to have more inventory available to pump into these so-called sales, whether it's export or registered there domestically in China. So with that rising inventory, we might see actually in this month that revert. You can kind of see in general these bounce back and forth to some extent. So I think we're probably going to see production be a little bit lower than wholesale sales. I do think we're going to end up, though, higher than 40,000. My guess right now is probably around 41,000, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was off, probably to the low end. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a higher number than that. But that being said, that's a really good number. So the highest production we had previously seen was 37,000, also in July. So this would be, if we get up to 41,000, 10-15% increase from the previous record. So very strong number there. Again, we'll flip over here to another sheet in Excel just to take a look at just the production tracking spreadsheet that we usually go through, just to take a look at how this might stack up for the quarter. So we went through this a couple, weeks ago, I guess, when we got the July production numbers. Usually those come out sometime between like the 20th and 27th. So we'll have to wait and see on those for September specifically. But last time we went through it, we had that rumor of Model Y production being ramped up to 1,000 per day and Model 3 production from Shanghai being at 800 per day. So we did some math on that and kind of put in just some loose estimates here, or sort of a framework here based on those numbers and what we saw from July. And that led us to August production, somewhere around 38,000, September, maybe then climbing all the way up to about 50,000. Now with these numbers here, I think we're probably even a little bit low there for August. So if we bump that up a little bit, again, we don't have the split between Model Y and Model 3. So over here, I'm just doing, Shanghai, and I know I'm covering that a little bit, but if we put those two up together, so 18,000 Model Y, 23,000 Model 3, just kind of holding Model 3 at the production rate that it's been at, and then bumping up Model Y because of that production ramp. We do have to remember that we did have, some people called it a week. Turns out that was probably actually closer to 4 days of downtime in August. So we do have to keep that in mind here with this number. But even with that downtime, it looks like total Shanghai production for August, I'm guessing somewhere around that 41,000 level. And then if we continue just to ramp up based on those rumors that we heard, which are looking more and more accurate with these numbers now, we could see, again, 50,000 in September, maybe even a little bit better than that if Tesla continues to ramp, which, we don't know yet. So if we're at 41,000 August, 50,000 September, combine that with 37,000 from July, that would put Shanghai for Q3 at around, I'll zoom in a little bit here, at around 128, 129,000 or so. Again, not necessarily an estimate, but as we get further into the quarter, this is going to become closer and closer to what my final estimate is going to end up being. And I think we're looking really good. You can see here for Shanghai, that would be up very significantly quarter over quarter. So 31% quarter over quarter from the about 98,000 produced in Shanghai in Q2. So that's about half the story. But then we also have to consider Fremont if we're talking, total volume. Last quarter, Q2, Tesla produced about 108,000 in Fremont. And remember, this quarter, we get an extra day. That helps more than people, give it credit for. People don't really think about that often. And of course, then we get a lot more Model S production this quarter. So between those two, I think it's, relatively conservative estimate actually to say that Fremont could produce 10,000 more vehicles or so. So I'll just put 118,000 in here for now. Again, not a final estimate, but just to kind of map out what this could look like. And then we've got a total 246,600 just from these numbers. Again, not necessarily my estimate at this point in time, but I think it's looking more and more likely that Tesla does come in above 240,000 vehicles produced for Q3. And if I had to make an estimate today, I would take the over on that. So I'm really excited with how these numbers are shaping up. 246,000 here. And again, there's probably even more upside from Fremont. That's a super high level forecast there of 118,000, not really taking the time to go through all the details that, we'll go through on closer to quarter end. I think there's probably still upside there, maybe even a little bit of upside in China. I don't think 250,000 produced this quarter is impossible. I probably wouldn't estimate that at this exact moment, probably somewhere between 240 and 250, but it's looking to me really strong despite the constraints and despite the chip shortages and those things. For deliveries, that's another story. I don't really care too much about how many of these vehicles produced Tesla can manage to logistically deliver. If they don't deliver them this quarter, they'll just happen next quarter. So we'll see on that. But as for production, it's looking, very strong, obviously pending how things play out in September. So anyway, I'll just unhide these. I hope you guys can see this okay. Yeah. I'll just unhide these percent changes here then. So this would be a 70% increase year over year for total production from last year's Q3, which was 145,000 vehicles produced. And we're finally getting into comping restarted production. So Q1 and Q2 last year had production shutdowns from the pandemic. Q3 though was pretty much full go. So we're now actually starting to get into those real year over year comps. And then in quarter over quarter terms, up 19%, which it's a strong number. And we've seen Tesla hit numbers like that in the past. So it wouldn't necessarily be unprecedented to see that kind of growth quarter over quarter. So we talked about Shanghai, then just rounding out Fremont here would be up 9% quarter over quarter, 10% year over year. Again, sounds very, very feasible, especially knowing that, we've got the Model S coming back into the fold. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. To me, the numbers are looking good. If we got a couple other notes here, just wrote on my notepad. So consensus right now for deliveries, so it's not necessarily fair comparison here, apples to apples, but delivery consensus I think right now is around 222,000 on Wall Street. So if Tesla produces above 240,000, I think they've got a clear shot at exceeding that pretty significantly, which would be great. And then if we look at, heading into Q4, you've got Model X hopefully coming into the fold in addition to the Model S that we saw added to Q3 here, most likely. So that's going to bump up maybe another, I don't want to count those Model X's before they're produced, but, there's the potential there for that to add another maybe 5 or 10,000 vehicles or so just to Fremont. They could continue ramping up Model 3 and Model Y there. Same thing with Shanghai. We just continue to see them overproduce to what their stated capacity is. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that continues to ramp up in Q4. And then you also have Berlin and Texas hopefully being a contributor in terms of some vehicles there in Q4. So putting all those together, clear shot at 250,000 or more for Q4, and maybe even quite a bit beyond that. If Berlin and Texas come online, maybe you're up to 270, 280. I haven't done too much math on that, but so far, if through Q3, that would put Tesla at about 633,000 deliveries with this number. If you get 250,000 more out of Q4, you're up to 883,000. So Berlin and Texas could definitely push that above 900,000 for the year. I would say at this point, to me, that looks like it's a number that's within reach. I think consensus right now is around 853, I want to say, last time I looked at it for the year. So things to me, it look like they're shaping up really well for the second half, obviously with the caveat of, who knows what'll happen with chips and things like that. So I don't think 1 million is probably in reach for this year at this point. That being said, even, 900,000, that's up more than 75% year over year, still great progress for 2021 if the number comes in around that level. And the kind of final comment that I would make on this is that if we do get that 240,000, plus for production, getting really, really close there to 1 million annualized run rate. So might not hit 1 million this year, but it looks very likely that we'll hit that sort of a run rate to close out the year. So really exciting to see that for Q3. All right, so just a couple more quick stories here. Let me flip back over to the browser. We'll just round those out for the day. So the first one here, this is on Tesla Energy. Tasmanian picking up on this from one of Tesla's employees on LinkedIn. They shared that they are creating a new team, this is per Tasmanian, focused on energy trading and market operations. And it sounds like this Julian Lamy, one of those, is leading this team. And currently they're explaining this because they're looking for a senior energy trading analyst. So basically what they're doing here is building a team to manage all of their energy projects, essentially worldwide. And then of course we have, all the things Tesla's doing with software around their energy storage hardware with Opticaster, AutoBidder, to try and, create the most value from the hardware that they have. So we talked about that with the impact report. One of the underrated elements of Tesla, I think, is their ability to extract high utilization, whether that's from hopefully eventually robotaxis or on the energy side of the business with things like AutoBidder. So exciting stuff there. Next here, this is just a quick update on a patent. So we have actually talked about this before, but it's been a couple of years. A while back, I think May 2019, Tesla filed this patent for lasers that will potentially clear debris off of glass. So off of a windshield or, maybe a camera lens or something like that on a vehicle. So they've got this diagram here showing how that patent would work. That patent was approved. So I don't have a ton of comments on that. I don't know that could fully replace an actual wiper. I'm not sure how great it would be for water. I think it would be more for like a debris that's maybe stuck on there that's not coming off with a wiper. But we'll see if if that gets implemented kind of kind of crazy to go through and read that, read how Tesla describes that laser system, but cool stuff. So I wanted to point that out. The other news, I don't have it pulled up here, but looks like Samsung is selected, I think, Taylor, Texas, for a chip fab that they're going to invest $17 billion in. So, there'll be that pretty close to Tesla down there in Austin. All right, and then last thing here, so just a quick update. So the Biden administration today released a report basically showing that they believe that the United States can get 40% of its electricity from solar energy by 2035. I think today it's around 4%. So obviously hoping for some significant growth there. It looks like they would want to achieve that target by installing about 30 gigawatt hours per year up until 2025, and then doubling that from 25 to 2030 to 60 gigawatts. Sorry, I might have said gigawatt hours, but 30 gigawatts per year, and then doubling that to 60 gigawatts from 2025 to 2030. So hopefully we'll see that. I think we're all excited about the potential for solar. So I think the more the US heads in that direction, I think probably the better. But we'll see. All right, so with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Hopefully everything went smoothly there. Let me know in the comments today what you're thinking for Q3 in terms of production. We can kind of have a little back and forth on that, and hopefully come to a good number by the time we get the results in, less than, I think, 4 weeks now. Q3 is flying by, so almost into Q4 already. Kind of crazy, but that'll do it for today. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday, September 9th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.